Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Tuesday, the 18th of March, 2025. I'm Graham Hughes, and you are watching Morning Brew on Politics Social. Hope you're having a good time. It's a bit cold here in Durham, but bright. It's cold, but bright. We've also got in the chat, we've got Diz, we've got Shropshire Chris, we've got Audrey White in there, we've got Billy Kershaw, we've got Sarah Davis, Nick and Diff, we've got Leonora, we've got David, we've got Joanna, we've got Koalamis. Hi, everyone. How you all doing? If you'd like to join our friends here in the chat, all you need to do, hit that lovely juicy subscribe button and wait for a minute and you'll be able to join, but don't be a troll. Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit over like what we talked about yesterday. Obviously, this whole idea of Trump carving up Ukraine. This is going to happen today. There's going to be an official, we think, declaration about the ceasefire. That I don't think that Putin is going to, if he does agree to it, it'll be very much on his terms, and very much he won't actually keep to it because Putin never keeps to a ceasefire. He's never done it before in his whole stinking, miserable life. What makes you think he's going to start now that he's got the leader of the free world rammed so far up his arse, it could be a suppository. We've got Trump and Putin. They're going to negotiate over Ukraine's land and power plants because, you know, European territory is just up for grabs again for the great powers. Whoever wants to just take what they want, they can. Hey, it's the 19th century again. Let's do it. You know, we're bringing back Victorian diseases. Why not just bring back the whole Victorian mentality? The White House has also approved Israel's deadly strikes on Gaza last night, which resulted in over 300 people losing their lives. The Biden administration wouldn't have done this. Obama wouldn't have done this. But Trump, he's just given Netanyahu the green light to let, in the words of the White House, all hell break loose. So let's talk about what Trump's actually said on Air Force One on Sunday night. He admitted that he'll be talking about land and power plants with Putin. The sheer insanity of all this is just, gobsmacking. A sitting US president unilaterally deciding the fate of a European country behind closed doors with the dictator who invaded it. Like, this is our land. This is our continent. And it's two people who aren't from our continent talking about how they're going to carve it up. Yeah, this can't be right. This can't happen. This cannot happen. We wouldn't allow, I don't think, Russia and America to do this with an African country or an Asian country. Why are we letting them do it with a European country? It's madness. It's absolute madness. And then you got the Ukrainian front lines are collapsing in Kursk and Sumy. This is because of the cut-off of American military aid, and more importantly, actually, because that takes a few weeks, maybe months to filter through, the cut-off of American military intelligence. Ukraine is now desperately fighting off Russian advances, but Trump is busy cutting a deal with Putin, the dictator who took over the country, rather than providing military support. And this mirrors Chamberlain's appeasement of Hitler with one startling difference, is that Neville Chamberlain, was never a Hitler fangirl, whereas Trump is completely a Trump. Trump is he's a Trump fangirl as well, but he's completely a Putin fangirl. Ivan Ambrose, thank you very much for the £5 super chat there, mate. Graham, there is a major day today in the UK, and you're not talking about it. Disabled people, including me, are so frightened, some for our lives. Yeah, Ivan, I'm getting to it. Just let me do this bit first, and then I'll get to that. But thank you very much for the super chat. Where was I? Completely lost now. What this means for NATO and Europe if Trump is willing to sell out Ukraine. What stops him from doing the same to Poland, the Baltics, and even Germany. So let's talk a bit quickly about. I'll get to what Ivan wants me to talk about in a moment. Just let me get this out. The US just gave Netanyahu the go-ahead to bomb the shit out of Gaza. I don't know if Hamas had actually done anything to trigger this, other than that the ceasefire negotiations that ceasefire period had ran out. Maybe I think it's still Ramadan, so they said they were going to stop for Ramadan, but I think that Ramadan's still going. Is it not? I don't know. But yeah, it's the heaviest airstrikes in Gaza since the January ceasefire. This is a deliberate escalation. Netanyahu had a choice to continue the fragile ceasefire or to break it. He chose violence, and Trump has endorsed it wholeheartedly. Hamas and Iran will retaliate because this isn't just about Gaza, it's about the wider Middle East. If the region erupts, Trump has just well and truly lit the match. But Trump wants this. He wants chaos. He wants to destabilize Middle East. It gives him more excuses to push authoritarian policies and strengthen ties with Israel's far-right government and distract from his drastic failures at home. As you'll see today, I mean, the domestic stuff that's going down in America is absolutely horrific for them, and he's just weapon of mass destruction here, saying, "Oh, look at everyone, look at what's happening in Gaza, look at what's happening in Ukraine," and then the humanitarian toll is horrific. Civilians are once again paying the price, and the West is once again complicit in war crimes. Great. Anyway, right, let's talk about Labour. So today, Labour are going to unveil their plans for the restructuring of social security. I don't call it in this country. Universal credit, PIP, benefit payments to people who are out of work, people who are out of work because of disabilities, people who are out of work because they're ill, people who are out of work for various reasons. And there is a huge gulf to be filled of people who are claiming benefits that Labour wants to try and plug in some way, because that number has escalated since the pandemic for understandable reasons. There's a lot of people off work with mental health problems, and what isn't helping Labour what's not helping Labour? What isn't helping us, Labour, is that their communications on this have been absolutely dreadful. And I know we've done communications, Labour comms to death on this channel, but let's just go over it again. We've seen this unedifying situation, right, of the spectacle of the Labour backbenchers doing interviews saying, we don't want this, we don't want cuts to benefits. It's not the Labour way. We've got Wes Streeting refusing to give a straight answer when he's questioned about benefit cuts. We've had leaks to the press, God knows where they've come from, but it's not very helpful when you've got the right-wing and the left-wing press all saying, oh, Labour's going to do this awful thing to disabled people. They're going to take your PIP away. They're going to do this, they're going to do that. When they don't know, and Labour haven't confirmed, but Labour won't even put people's fears. They won't even help. They won't even go, oh, hang on, people are off work because of stress. Should we make them less stressed? Nah, we'll make them more stressed. That'll work. And it's just it's really it's really frustrating, not just for me as a pundit, talking head on the internet, but also, I mean, for people who have supported Labour, that they're seeing the party just argue amongst itself over a policy that should never even be, in some ways, thought about by Labour. The idea of freezing PIP payments. Why? PIP payments aren't just given to people who are out of work. It's also given to people who are in work so they can work. So if you take those payments away, you freeze them, you stop them going up at the rate of inflation, so there's not enough money for people to work, then they'll go off work. It's just like, this seems really self-evident to me. I don't know about you. I don't know how you feel about this, but to me, that seems like really, really obvious. If you want to tell me why it's not obvious in the chat, I'd love to know, because I feel like I'm being a dickhead over this. The UK governments, the incompetence when it comes to even basic communications is driving me up the freaking wall. And I don't want to talk too much about what's going to happen today, because I don't know. You don't know. The papers don't know. Nobody knows. Not of the bloody Labour MPs that were spoken to. They don't seem to know either. And when he was asked about it at the weekend, Wes Streeting just went, oh, I'm not privy to those discussions. I'm not privy to those discussions. And I'm like, yes, you are. You're in the freaking cabinet. I'm like, well, they're not discussing. Well, we haven't seen what she's going to present yet. You haven't seen what she's going to present on Tuesday, mate. So let me get this straight. Labour are going to announce something, and the first time that their MPs, even better, not just their MPs, the first time their cabinet is going to know about it is when it is declared publicly. What the fuck, Labour? Like, what is wrong with you? Is that? I know that's not really the case. And I know that Wes Streeting was being diplomatic with the truth, or using alternative facts, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But it is quite galling to see Labour just go down this route of like, no, it's a secret. Keeping cards close to my chest, not letting them see the cards that we can use. This is what the Tories did during the whole Brexit negotiations. Oh, we've got the cards. We held the cards. We've got to show you the cards. Got the cards. Wouldn't give anyone the certainty that they need to plan their fucking lives. And for all the shit that Brexit carved up for this country, one of the worst bits of it all was the uncertainty. Was it meant that people couldn't plan the rest of their lives. People couldn't plan what they were going to do with their business. People couldn't plan what they were going to do for work. People couldn't plan what they were going to do to retire. All those plans were put on hold while the politicians argued amongst themselves over which flavour tea they were going to get from China in future now that we were free from the shackles of the fucking EU. Like, you know, that's going to suddenly make us really rich. Yeah, let's turn our back on our closest trading partner. And I have to say, one of the things that we tried to do, the anti-Brexit movement, again and again and again, is not do this. Look, there were some people in the anti-Brexit movement who did things differently to me, right? I wasn't interested in being that dickhead who ran around and went, well, I didn't vote for it. I didn't vote for it. I didn't vote for it. Like, that absolves me of any blame for my country doing the stupidest fucking thing it's ever fucking done, right? It doesn't. I should have done more. I should have made, I wasn't in the country. It's no excuse. It's no excuse, you know? I didn't have a platform. No excuse, you know? I did a little bit. I did what was kind of in my power at the time before the referendum. What little I could do. I wrote a blog post. Woo! We wrote a blog post. Well done, Graham. You can sleep at night now. But, you know, I could have done more. I could have done more. I could have spoken to all my parents' friends who I knew were going to vote for Brexit because, you know, they're the older generation and they just do what they're told by the Daily Mail. Could have had made an effort to call each and every one of them and explain to them why it was a terrible idea. But one of the things I didn't do was run around saying, well, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. What I did do is make a real big effort to tell our European brothers and sisters that they weren't our enemy. That the EU was not our enemy, that the people in the EU were not our enemy. It was really, really important to me to get that message out to as many people in Europe as I possibly could. That's not really happening in America right now. And they're going full-blooded for hatred of Canadians. And they're starting fights online with Canadians who are obviously, you know, fighting back because they feel threatened quite justifiably by the rhetoric coming out of America. And don't forget, Brexit was like, okay, we're leaving you, which is, you know, sad, a bit of a breakup. But what America is doing is saying, we're going to invade you. We're going to invade Canada. Canada should be part of America. We're going to invade Canada. And they're going to keep saying it until it becomes normalized in the minds of millions of Americans who go, yeah, Canada should be ours. Yeah, that makes sense. Because they don't want to have to think too hard about anything ever. Because that's just the American way, I guess. So yeah, I feel like when we were fighting Brexit, I feel it was slightly quite different to what is happening in America at the moment. That all said, the uncertainty was an absolute killer for us in this country, but also the way that the same people doing the same methods, the same techniques, were ruling the roost during those Brexit years. You had Dominic Cummings, you had Nigel Farage, you had Aaron Banks, you had Andy Wigmore, you had that Richard Tice creep, all, you know, vying for power over what the future of Britain was going to look like. And it looks like it's diminished. It looks like we have pushed away all of our allies, pissed people off. But now Trump has given us the opportunity to actually go back to our friends, our family, our brothers and sisters in Europe and reforge those bonds again like never before. And it's a silver lining to all this, but oh my God, 300 people dead in Gaza last night for no other reason than Trump wanted to send them a strong message. Trump, who's also bombed the shit out the Houthis in Yemen earlier this week. This is a guy who is all for war. He's talking about invading countries. He's talking about invading Panama. He's talking about invading Greenland and Canada. He's talking about invading countries. And people go, oh, he's the only president who never started a war, don't you know? I'm like, well, Obama didn't start a war. Biden to start a war. Ivan, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. We all know about Tory austerity and horrendous damage caused by it, but don't address it off the backs of disabled people. I think that, yeah, Ivan, thanks very much for the super chat. I think that we need to make more of a fuss about what austerity did to disabled people and what it continues to do to disabled people. There is a disability tax. If you are disabled, life is more expensive. To just do anything is more expensive. If you can't drive a car because you're disabled, getting on a bus, yeah, it costs more than driving a car to town. So all those able-bodied people in, one person in a car and an entire, planet-killing car, it's cheaper for them to go to town than it is for you in your wheelchair. And obviously people who are disabled should be getting passes and things like that to go on public transport for free, but that doesn't happen. They might get a third off if they're lucky, if they can prove they're disabled. And sometimes there is a fight over proving that you are disabled. My partner gets this all the fucking time because she is deaf. And people say, you're not really deaf. Prove you're really deaf. And I blame Little Britain for that more than anything. Little Britain that can piss off and just, unalive. That idea that disabled people are just pretending for the attention. And you see this all the time with people who are suffering from depression, people who are suffering from all kinds of mental health problems. And they go, oh, you just pull yourself together. They're just milking it. They're just milking it. They're just like the attention. No, they don't. No one wants to be depressed. No one's doing it to be cool. They're going, oh, you know what people are doing? It's a trend to be trans now. It's a trend. And I'm like, why would anyone in this world right now, the way things are, choose to be trans? Why would anyone do that? Why would anyone choose to be gay? Why would anyone choose to be black? Why would anyone choose to be Muslim? People don't. It's a difficult path to go down. People are going to be horrible to you every step of the way. Actually, take that back. People do choose to be Muslims, but I guess it's their calling if they do convert. But making your life more difficult. I think I'll choose to be deaf today. I think I'll choose to be disabled. I think I'll choose to have to use a wheelchair or like crutches to get around. I've got a friend who has mobility issues, and she when she's walking with crutches, people are like, oh, you're not really disabled because she's not in a wheelchair. Oh, you don't need the wheelchair. You can get around on crutches. And it's like, I'm sorry, what is going on in the minds of people going, oh, well, it's not that bad. You can get around with crutches. Yeah, it's a fucking nightmare to get around on crutches. Can anyone remember when they've sprained an ankle or broken something and they've had to go around on crutches for a couple of weeks? It's the fucking nightmare. The blisters you get on your hands. Yeah. And you can imagine if your legs aren't working and you've got to drag yourself wherever you need to go. And it's like, oh, well, you've got a wheelchair, but you can use crutches if you want. All right. Going upstairs on crutches is a nightmare. Going downstairs is fucking terrifying. Going downstairs on crutches. Oh, my God. Oh, my... Oh, do you know what I mean? But people just don't think. They just don't think. They just go, oh, well, everyone's swinging the lead. Everyone's taking the piss. And I think they say this because I think if it was them, that's the kind of thing they would do. They would cheat. They would lie. They would milk the system. All right, why don't you then? Oh, because I'm better than that. Oh, all right, so you're better than all these other people who are just living their lives. All right, mate. Whatever. Oh, no. Oh, shit, David, what's happened? David's aunt died. I'm really sorry to hear that, mate. That's really awful. I'm really sorry, mate. Shit, condolences. Major condolences, especially if you found her. Oh, sorry. Steve C says, CVH says, I spent 3 months on crutches once and learned how scary and uncaring society can be. Yeah, absolutely. You can get a sticker that says something. You say, I don't look disabled. You don't look stupid, but appearances can be deceptive, says Anne Phillips. Yeah, well, when we go to the airport or something, Catherine has a sunflower lanyard to show that she's deaf. And people don't argue with it. But then last time we went to Manchester Airport, I hate Manchester Airport. Don't get me started on Manchester Airport. Because she wasn't in a wheelchair, we had to use the same going through the scanners as everybody else. So when her bag went off to one side, and it's so noisy and so oppressive in that room where they check your luggage, and she couldn't hear what they were trying to tell her, like to come round or what to do, and they got all antsy with her, and she's like, I'm deaf, I can't understand. And you got to understand as well that when you are disabled or when you are trans or gay or whatever, you don't want to make that everything about your life. You know, that's not like everything. And a lot of the time, Catherine doesn't want to say that she's deaf. She just wants to get on with life. She doesn't have to declare it everywhere she fucking goes that she's disabled. She doesn't want to have to do that. And so most situations, she'll meet someone new and she'll be chatting away to them. And they'll find out later on that she's deaf. And they're like, how were you hearing what I was saying? And she was, I wasn't. I was reading your lips and just guessing what you were saying most of the time. Because most of the time people talk bollocks. You can just smile and nod and go, yeah, and get away with it. But still, I mean, it's incredibly demeaning to people to be having to shout in a crowded room, I am deaf, I am disabled, I can't hear you, because we were made to go into the, the normal bag check. Because even though Catherine is disabled, she's not disabled enough to warrant special treatment, which she needs, especially in situations when she's asked to do things by people, by officials, with guns, maybe in an airport. I suppose the people checking these stuff don't have guns, but there's people around with bloody machine guns, which is terrifying, by the way. Thanks very much for putting them in the airport to make me feel safer. Yeah. Jesus. Katrina, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Hi, Graham. Watch yesterday's show and catch up. Joining late today. What the fuck is wrong with Wes Streeting and a bunch of others too, actually? I don't know what Wes Streeting's problem is. The fact that he's anti-trans when he's a gay man himself, and you're like, oh my God, how can you throw a segment of the LGBT community under the bus in order to do what? Do what? He's denying puberty blockers to trans kids, but not to cisgender kids. All right, here's an example for you, Wes. Imagine if a Tory government or a you-fuck government, right, the Reform UKKK, they get in and they make a new rule. Here's a new rule, right? Gay teenagers can't use condoms. Cisgender kids can, because they might get someone pregnant if they don't, so they can have condoms. But no, not teenaged gay kids, because there's no point really. I mean, they're not going to get anyone pregnant, are they? Oh, but hang on, does that make it more dangerous for teenage gay kids because disease and stuff? Oh, does it? Okay. So you wouldn't back that, would you, Wes? Because that will make things more dangerous for gay teens, and it seems a bit unfair to single out gay teens for them to say you can't have this medical intervention, if you want to call it that. But this prophylactic, you can't have that. The straight kids can. The straight kids can have it. They can do what they like with it. But the teenagers who are gay, no, right, you can't have condoms. We're going to have a new rule that you can't even buy them privately. You can't even buy them from Boots. Yeah. We're going to have a little gaydar thing put into, the condom machines in all the men's toilets around the country. They're going to have a little gaydar thing and it scans you to see if you look a bit gay. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I hope you like that analogy. If you don't, well. Leapshin, the term just pull yourself together or give yourself a shake really grinds my gears. It's not that easy, says Leapshin. Yeah. And there's two main types of depression, the way it hits people. And I've known people with both. One is something terrible has happened. Someone's died. A relationship has broken down. You've lost your job. You've had a car accident. You had something traumatic happen to you. And that's your brain trying to process what's happened. And yes, you might need therapy and you might need intervention in that. But you generally speaking, if you're given the support of a community, if you're given support, I don't want to sound too woolly about this, but basically, if you're given the support that you need, whether that is through medical intervention or through your family, friends, your wider community, then it's something that you can get through. And then there's the other type of depression, which I'm not going to say it's proper depression, but it's like, this is the depression that's really, really hard to deal with, because if it's something that's happened to you and impacted your life, time is a great healer. And although, yes, effects of PTSD can go on for years if left untreated, if these things are treated, if these things are talked through, if these things are helped, it can make a big difference, right? The difference is, right, if you've got, let's just call it like, the other depression, it hits you like a brick out of nowhere. I've had some people in my life who are the absolute life and soul of the party. The people that when they turn up, you're like, yes, it's going to be a good night tonight. Really seem very confident, happy with themselves, and then bang, depression hits them like a brick, right? And they can't get out of bed in the morning. I'm sure I'm talking to a lot of you who know exactly what I'm talking about here, and I'm just teaching your grandmothers to suck eggs or something. But you cannot get out of bed in the morning, and you don't know why. Your brain just won't let you. And it's just like, well, I don't want to be here anymore. And you're fighting a fight with your own fucking brain, which is clearly malfunctioning and telling you stuff that is awful about yourself and about, not being able to do things and not being able to do anything. What's the point, etc. And that is the stuff where we need to have more compassion, understanding, and faster medication. And I'm not talking about medication just in terms of medicine. I'm talking about therapy and stuff like that, cognitive behavioral therapy, whatever, okay? We need to be, nipping this stuff in the bud straight away. It's no good making people wait a year for a referral. It just doesn't work. Like, we're seeing this time and time again, that people who are suffering are kind of like suffering in silence because they're not being given the treatment. So they go into the doctor and they say, I'm not feeling great. And the doctor only has 5 minutes with them before they have to see the next patient. And so you can't talk about all the things that are going on. A lot of people who go into the doctor say, I'm not feeling great. I think I might be depressed. If the doctor had time to talk it through with them, it might turn out that they're depressed for a very good reason. And essentially, there's one course of treatment for people who are depressed for a reason. And then there's another course of treatment for people who are depressed for no reason. And here's the thing. Out of those two treatments, there are millions of branches, well, not millions, but there's a lot of branches of sub-treatments of ways that will work for one person, but that same exact treatment won't work for somebody else. And that process of titration, or whatever you want to call it, of sussing out what works for each individual human, takes a long time. But we need to address this. I think that every GP surgery should have a mental health practitioner there, at least one, for the community, and who can actually spend time with patients and find out what it is that works for them. And it might take numerous trips to go and see the mental health practitioner, get a referral, go to the mental health practice. We need to destigmatize mental health problems because everyone has them. Like, this isn't something that is just, those little weak snowflakes. Although there's only a tiny percentage of the population that no, anyone can suffer from mental health problems, and it might manifest itself in different ways for different people. But they've all essentially boil it down to the same thing. Your brain goes a bit haywire. The brain is the most complex thing we know of in the universe. And if you think about how complex your computer is, or your phone, does your phone ever go wrong? Does your phone ever crash? Yes, it does. And it's a million times more simple than a human brain. These things happen. Anyway, Ivan, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. Sorry, I was going off on a bit of a rant there. We need responsible adjustments, and these are often basic things, but when we ask, it's as if we're asking the earth. Yes, Ivan, I've had experience of this recently because I looked into getting a few things to help me with my ADHD and to help me do these shows and things like that. And it's just like, instead of a website that is proactive, that says, okay, you might need this, you might need that, you don't get anything. You don't get any. It just says, well, tell us what you need and we'll think about it. And I say, I don't know what I need. I'm not a medical professional. I don't even really know what all I know about ADHD, I've learned on fucking TikTok. It's like, I didn't do a medical degree. Could you tell me what I might need? And I'll say, oh yeah, I do actually need that. That would actually help. But yeah, amen to that, says Leapshin in response to Ivan's super chat. Yeah, amen to that. I agree. Reasonable adjustment is not something that is detrimental to anybody else. And that's the thing. Because we view society, this ultra endgame capitalist fucking mentality, we all think it's a zero-sum game. And it is not zero-sum. Just because a disabled person gets a ramp doesn't mean that you, as an able person, don't get access to the building. It's a ridiculous mindset that we have. That, oh my god, they're getting stuff. Yeah, but it's stuff that you don't need. Yeah, but they're getting stuff nonetheless. Ooh. Which is, yeah. Anne says, my depression was situational. Once I'd finished the divorce and got sacked from the horrible job, things began to get better. It was rough for a bit though. Says Anne. Yeah, situational. That's the word I wanted to use. I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm glad you got out the other side. But yeah, you think about postpartum depression, postnatal depression. It's caused by an event that's happened that has triggered this sadness in people, which is understandable. And in a way, yeah, you're supposed to feel bad when bad things happen. It's just the way we are. If you don't, that's arguably a worse thing if you think about it. Like, I wouldn't want to not be upset if I lose a friend or a family member who I really love and cherish. You know, even if I don't love and cherish them, it's sad when someone dies. It just is. It makes me sad. And it should. Good. I'm a functioning human being. Hurrah! I suffer from grief. But yeah, if you're in a bad situation, it is completely understandable that people might need support beyond what maybe their family and friends can supply them with, especially if part of the problem that they're dealing with is stemming from their family or friends. So yeah, I want to see more, not just medical intervention, therapies, all that kind of stuff, but I also want to see the destigmatization of mental health problems and also the destigmatization of fucking medicine. You know, don't give people shit for being on medicine. Don't be also, oh, well, that didn't work for me, so no one should use it. No one should use that thing that didn't work for me. No effects without side effects, okay? There's going to be some people who the thing that is given doesn't work. That's going to happen across the board. And do you know what? There's going to be some people for a certain thing that does work. Just because it worked for you doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. And these things like seem self-evident to me now, but maybe they weren't. Maybe they weren't 20 years ago when I thought that someone taking their own life was the most selfish thing you could possibly do until it happened to someone I was very close to. And then I was like, oh my God, I was more angry at myself, to be honest with you, for not picking up on the signs beforehand. But there weren't many signs there because people internalize, because they feel embarrassed to talk about this stuff because of society going, oh, we don't want to hear about that. Just pull yourself together. It's like the fucking billionaires telling us to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. You know, these very poor people around the dinner table saying, well, you know, no one's handed things on a silver platter. And I'm like, yes, they are. The rich, if you've got rich parents, yes, you are. If you want to start a business, a small business in this country, you can get a £15,000 loan at 6.6% from the small loans, the business-backed loans or whatever they call it. And the loan is on you, not on your business. If you have an Uncle Rich moneybags who can give you £50,000, £100,000, £500,000 to start your business, it's going to be so much easier. And you see time and time again that the people who start a business, they fail. They fail like 9 times out of 10. And it's just the 10th time they get away with it. The rest of us don't have 9 attempts to fail. We just don't have it. We until we hit something successful. We get one chance, and that's it. If you don't make it, you could lose everything. You could lose absolutely everything. Let's see what people have got to say in the chat. We've got Joanna Hammond there. I've been quite lucky with regard to sectioning. I've always managed to talk my way out of it after doing the silly things, says Joanna. Yeah, it's a difficult one, that. I mean, if you've got a friend who is clearly suffering, like, it's that you don't want them to be sectioned because it will disrupt everything in their lives, especially if there's kids involved. At the same time, you need them to get the help that they need. But if they don't want to take the help, if they don't believe there's anything wrong with them, which is another facet of both mental illness, but also society, this idea that you're a proud person who can't get ill, and it's a killer. It's a real killer. You see this with men a lot, actually, not going to the doctors until it's too late because they're like, oh, I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. I'm fine. I've never been ill, and they make it like a point of their own masculinity, the fact that they don't need to go to the doctors or the dentist, or they can eat a really hot curry or doing something really stupid. And it's like, we need to get over ourselves. We need to get over ourselves, be a bit more humble, be a bit more understanding of the way that our bodies work and the way that society and our brains work, and a bit more understanding of other people. If they go down the route of therapy and something works for them, great. Don't knock it. Don't put fucking memes up on Facebook saying they just need to go for a walk. Yeah, it does help. Yeah, I know it helps, but in the long term, you got to come back at some point and go to freaking bed and then stay up all night with all the thoughts in your head going round your head, not letting you sleep. And another walk in the park in the middle of the night, probably not a good idea if you're a woman living on her own. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a bit unhelpful. Oh, this is shit, they say to the medication. Oh, what you want is a walk in the park? You want to walk in the forest? That'll be great. Which forest are you going to go to? Oh, I'll go to that one in Japan where they all hang themselves. Yay! That'll make me feel better. Oh, proper drives me up the wall, that. But what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. And we just need to have that mentality, which we don't seem to. Well, some of us don't anyway. Thankfully, I'm now self-employed, so I can take time out anytime I need to. That's good news from Martin. Nick and Div says, my dad was looking at a mobility car for a family member. Salesman said he had a teenager also looking for a mobility car, but a sports version, blatantly buying for himself, but fraudulently. Not great. After my mum died, I didn't feel like doing anything, not motivate myself. Yeah, Martin, I completely understand how that must have felt. Gallifreyan Wren, I nearly forgot to troll chat with food. Just had smoked salmon and eggs for breakfast. Doing a slow roast pork shoulder later. I haven't had my breakfast yet, but thanks for that. The people who asked to pay more tax have been driving tractors around London and gathering around Farage and Clarkson ever since. Yeah. Closing ranks. The private school mafia will always close ranks. You saw it with fox hunting. You had working class kids from Cornwall going to London 20 years ago to protest against the government banning fox hunting, which is a cruel, inhumane sport that does nothing for anyone except the edification of toffs who want to see, beautiful animals ripped apart and dying horribly for no good reason at all, right? Other than their own sadism. And you had 1 million people turn out in London. And they weren't all toffs. They were working class kids who were like, we need this. This is integral to our lives. And Cornwall has been screwed over by the rich like nowhere else on this island. Like, they have been proper screwed over by the rich metropolitan elites, the real metropolitan elites, not the people watching this, not me, not you. The ones who are millionaires who can afford to buy a second house in Cornwall and they let it out on Airbnb and they're never there and they just drive up the rent, the cost of living in those places for the normal people who live there. The average everyday person just cannot afford to live there anymore because they cannot afford to live. They cannot afford to buy a house because all the houses have been snapped up by people who already have a house. That's what the rich do. They'll shit all over the poor at every opportunity because it's not enough for them to be rich. How many Trumps, how many Elon Musks do there need to be for people to get this through their skulls? It's not enough for the rich just to be rich. That's not enough for them. They also have to make the poor poorer. I don't know why. It's some sick thing going on in their head. They see the world as a zero-sum game. The less other people have, the more that they believe that they have. Gerard says, Starmer is the new Thatcher. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, have we had any strikes since Labour got in? I think they got away with all the strikes because they said they'll come to a reasonable pay negotiation with the unions, which is something that the Tories were not interested in doing. Tories didn't even go to meet them. There's the new deal for workers' rights is coming in, which has gone even further than Labour promised in the manifesto. But as I said the other day, Labour could do 99 wonderful things and does one major fuck up, and all people will remember is the fuck up. Like Thatcher was awful from start to bottom, top to bottom. But even if you thought she was all right, which most people don't, there's one thing that is always going to be tied around Thatcher's neck. It's the poll tax, her major fuck up. I think the last person who tried to bring in a form of poll tax, like Charles I, the king, who was beheaded. So yeah, not a great idea. That bringing in a new tax on people who don't want to be taxed. But yeah, and then you've got Tony Blair. You look at all the great things Labour did in those Blair years, and it's all just for now because all we think of is Iraq. And in the same way that Starmer, we had this thing about Starmer balancing the Ming vase across an ice rink or whatever it was described as. He did that quite well in the run up to the election. I don't think he's done as well since then because not necessarily Labour policy, but because of Labour comms. They just can't explain stuff to people. I think that Phil Morehouse provides a vital public service in explaining what Labour are doing and why they're doing it. But why isn't Labour doing that? They've got the money. They could pay some... Anyway, don't get me started. We had mobility car for years, but the person who needed it moved house and can now use a bus on site. They'll be moving again, though, so then the card again. Hopefully it won't be too difficult, says Nick and Diff. In Abersock, just up the coast from us, there's only 9 or 10 permanent residents left thanks to holiday homes. People who already have a house buying another house. Joanna says, I'm sick of hearing about how PIP gives people free cars. It does not. You have to get high mobility and the cost is deducted from your PIP. Yeah. People who don't understand PIP don't know anyone who receives it. Or maybe they do know someone who receives it, but they don't realise they know someone who receives it. They don't know what it is. They just want to point to people and say, oh, look at these lazy people with the free money. Which is something that we should look at the aristocrats, the neo-aristocrats, and say, look at these lazy people and their free money. Look at the money that Boris Johnson got. He didn't attend 5 Cobra meetings when COVID was raging and coming to this country ever so slow, quickly, actually. 5 years ago, he didn't attend the meetings. We were paying him a shitload of money. And then when the pandemic came along, him and all his mates, all they decided to do was make as much money as possible. So Michelle Mone can hang out on her new yacht. Is she working hard? Bollocks, she's working hard. I hate the term working hard because it's all fucking relative. I think that a coal miner works a lot bloody harder than anyone who works in an office. It's so stressful working in an office. All right, yeah, cool your tits, man. I mean, you're not working harder than someone who's on an oil fucking rig and has to dive down, risk their lives to unplug the oil fucking blockage that's in the pipe. It's all relative. It's all relative. And I remember working in a bar. Is working in a bar stressful? Well, the tills don't work, and you got to do all the arithmetic in your head, and it's 2:00 in the morning, and the rugger buggers are pouring beer over their fucking heads. Yeah, it can get quite stressful. Any job can get quite stressful. I mean, but working hard, is moving stuff working hard? Well, in a way, yeah. But honestly, when I was on the island a few months ago and I was literally moving bags of soil all day, it was great. I didn't have to think about Trump. I didn't have to think about the impending Trumpocalypse. I didn't have to think about the I didn't have to make up things to talk about for an hour every morning. I just got on with the job. It was great. I came back from that trip with my head filled with 5 really awesome script ideas for films that I'd like to make. And that was achieved by just having that time to just zone out and think creatively. I can't meditate. That meditation for me would be torture. Clear your mind of thought. Say that to an ADHD person. Go on. Yeah, I'll turn off one of the 17 televisions in my head. Hang on. Oh, no, I can't. I've got ADHD. Anyway, but yeah, having that time really helped. And was it hard work? Yes, it was hard work, but not in the same way that doing this is hard work. To be honest with you, I'd rather be doing that right now, even though I suppose technically picking up heavy bags and carrying them across a field in the height of summer is well, I don't know, it's not the height of summer over there, but it's still 28 degrees every day. Substantially hotter than it is in the UK. So yeah, I worked hard. When a rich person whose daddy was very rich and gave them loads of money says, "I worked hard. I worked 17-hour days." You know, I'm like, yeah, people do that. People do that for fuck all money, and they'll continue to do that until they're well into their 70s because rich people want to keep their money. And if we want to just talk about what Starmer should do today in his speech, or whoever gives it's not him, he's giving the speeches. When Labour announced their plans for benefit reform, I hope they say, "Well, we're gonna enhance benefits for people who need it, and we're going to tax the rich, mega super tax on the rich, like what they're doing in France, like what they're doing in Spain. Don't like it, you can leave. Go live in America for the next few months until people in America realise that." The super wealthy are only 0.01% of the population. Yeah, they're a minority of a minority. Just saying. Mr. Tusk 27, Thatcher ruined everything. Yes. And also, no, because it wasn't just her. It was Reagan as well. Reaganomics, trickle-down economics. How well did that go? And Boris had the gall to claim he wasn't paid enough. Yeah, lazy bastard. I think there was a really good point that Gary Stevenson made on one of his podcasts, or he's been interviewed about how it's all relative when it comes to wealth, and if you have two people living next door to each other, if one of them's lazy, they won't earn as much money as the person who's proactive. However, the person who's proactive, if they grow up in the wrong end of town, they're never going to make as much money doing legal stuff as a lazy rich person who just sits on the house all day playing PlayStation. Free TV. I started gainful self-employment from the job club. After just 3 months, they thought I wasn't making enough progress, so made me seek full-time employment again. I put so much work into it. That's really crap, Free X TVE. And one of the reasons why I really, really support UBI, because things take a long time to put together. Things take a long time to get a level of expertise for how to do it. I mean, yeah, and get it right. And just giving you 3 months and going, "Oh no, sorry, you haven't made progress yet." I think it's just it's maddening. Joanna says there are two types of working hard: physical and mental. Both can be just as exhausting. Yeah, I agree with that. Purity Vendetta says it worries me that Labour have just received their largest ever donation, 4 million from an offshore hedge fund. I wonder if this has anything to do with refusing to bring in a wealth tax. That's from Purity Vendetta. Yeah. Maybe. When politicians or journalists talk about hardworking people, it's always about white collar office types, never shop workers or bin men or van cleaners, etc. Yeah. And to be honest with you, like working hard. I mean, people working on the roads, working on the motorways, they get so much shit because, oh god, the road works made me slow down for a little bit, and I'll have to drive a bit slower for a bit. But like that is a fucking hard job. They're working in the middle of winter. It's frosty out, and they're digging holes in the bloody motorway with cars going past at 50 miles an hour. That's terrifying. That's proper terrifying. MZ says reforms chances in Wales have greatly increased apparently, but not sure they're winning. Will actually benefit the ordinary folks for them, though. No, it won't. Thatcher, mate of Pinochet, yeah, General Pinochet of Chile, who was an absolute bloody monster. Capitan says, maybe it will, Sarah. Maybe everyone needs to calm down and wait and see rather than getting worked up by the press. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, Captain. And there's a few people on the channel who have said something similar. I completely agree. My problem here isn't necessarily with what Labour are doing, because I don't know what they're doing yet. It is with Labour comms, because they should be quelling people's fears. And you've got people writing to MPs, and please continue writing to your MPs, because they do pay attention to it. They have to read those messages. If you're a constituent, they have to read your message. And if you haven't got time, get ChatGPT to help you, get AI to help you write the message, and just get it out to them. And it's like, it's like giving people homework. I hate saying it because I'm not one for homework myself, but at the same time, I think it's something that we need to keep our Labour MPs honest. I don't have a problem with Labour MPs necessarily because most of them I think are good. I think they're good people. I think they want the best. Nick and Diff says there are already several taxes on the wealthy. Whether they go far enough is another question. Indeed. Leonora says, I hope Starmer acknowledges the poor communications, etc., has caused real harm. Then he can tax the rich. I would like him to tax the rich. Purity said, I did a job. I wouldn't wish on anyone to get a bit of money to start my own business. It was just taking off and leaving the CM. The single market customs union happened. Sales crashed overnight due to non-tariff costs. Yeah, Brexit just destroying business in this country, left, right, and centre. Ishtar, Farsight is actually playing his own games for a change, or does he want to keep a closer eye on the gaming minions? I don't know. Is right, Graham. Labour comms aren't helping either. No, I think they're the root of all fucking evil, to be honest with you. I mean, they're fucking. I think they're run by Tories. I think they're run by like refuck. It's the only thing that makes sense, isn't it? Love how Elon started carrying his kid around after Luigi happened, literally using him as a human shield, says Ishtar. You're not wrong. Nick and Diff, Labour having bad comms isn't new. They've always been utterly abysmal. Should learn lessons from this big time, says Nick and Diff. Yeah, you're right. The thing is with Musk, right? And I feel this way about Trump and J.K. Rowling and Graham Linehan and Lawrence Fox, Julia Heartless Brewer. There's a point where all of these people will die. Like one day they'll cark it, right? And they must really, really hate their children, right? Because they've made themselves hated. Like, not just disliked, not just like, oh, God, whatever. Actually, viscerally hated for what they've done, for the cruelty they've inflicted on others. And when they cark it, on the day it happens, people will be celebrating. People will be cracking open beers, popping open champagne. They're going to be filming themselves dancing in the streets and the backyard, putting it on Instagram, putting it on TikTok. And those people's children are going to have to see that. They're going to have to see people celebrate the death of their parent. And that's horrific. That's the most horrible thing I think that any parent can do to their, well, probably not the worst, but like, out of the horrible things that a parent can do to a child, that's pretty high up. First of all, you're grieving the loss of someone in your life, and then you have to open the newspapers, you go online, go on the internet, and all you can see is people who are so fucking happy, people dancing up and down, people excited and just absolutely made up, saying we're gonna mark this day for the rest of my life. It's the day that fucker died. You saw it with Thatcher. You think when Trump pops his clogs, it's going to be it's going to be like the end of Return of the Jedi, mate. Ivan, thank you very much for the £5 super chat, mate. It's very kind of you. Ivan's always very kind. Is that the case about the 4 million donation? As a Labour member, I can can't even say this word now. Categorically, got there in the end. I say this is not a Labour thing to do. It's a Tory thing to do. It is indeed. Thank you very much for the super chat, though, Ivan. It's funny when you just can't say a word. I got this a lot when I was doing the audio book of my book, Man of the World. There were just places in it. It read fine, but when I read it out loud, I just couldn't say the word. And thankfully, I wrote the book, so I could actually change the text of the book to match what I say in the audio book. Whereas there's a story about Stephen Fry, who narrated the Harry Potter books, wanting to change a line where he said that Harry pocketed it, and he just couldn't say it. And he asked J.K. Rowling if she could change that line to Harry put it in his pocket. If he could just change it on the audio book, I'm not saying she had to change it in the book or whatever. And she said no. Do you know why? But yeah, we're not going to go down that route. A lot of those bods, the child may be the first one celebrating, says Anne Phillips. Well, maybe. Pete says, I just want to celebrate another day of living. I just want to celebrate another day of love. Oh, that's lovely, Pete. Elon said his trans kid is dead to him, was killed by woke. I can't get over how shitty that guy is. Yeah, I follow Vivian on TikTok, and she's great. She's fucking great. This is Elon Musk's daughter, who's living her best life, despite the fact that her dad is just a monster. He's just an absolute monster. It's a throwback to the days of people coming out to their parents as being gay, and their parents saying, "You're dead to me. I never want to see you again." In the 80s, there were so many homeless people in London who were gay, who were thrown out by their parents, thrown out by. I can't even imagine doing that. Imagine throwing out your own child, because of who they love, because of who they fancy. Not hurting anybody else. They're not abusing anyone. They're just getting on with their lives, and it's like, no, sorry. Get out my life. And you're seeing the same thing now with trans people, parents who are just on. I mean, don't get me wrong. The majority of parents of trans kids are really supportive and really help out, but some of them, my God. Chuck Schumacher adjusting his glasses as USA crumbles. What's he waiting for? He's doing the thing. I've done a whole episode on this, didn't I? About waiting, the myth of letting the results speak for themselves. Labour have fallen into that in this country. They're not bothered with decent comms because they think the results are going to speak for themselves. And in America, they think that Trump's going to make things so bad for Trump voters, they're going to turn on him. They're not. They're not. There was an interview, right, with a woman I saw yesterday. It was on like ABC or CNN or something. And she was living in Florida. And she suffered from type 1 diabetes. She needs thousands of dollars worth of drugs every month just to stay alive. She's caring for her daughter who's severely disabled, and she's also caring for her mother as well. She completely relies on Medicare, Medicaid, and the Trump administration said they're gonna cut, what is it, $800 billion from Medicare, Medicaid. So she's probably going to end up with nothing and have to pay for those medications herself. And it's going to be like £20,000 a month. She's not going to be able to afford it. And she voted for Trump. And she was asked, would she vote for him again? And she said, I just wouldn't vote for anyone. Why did she vote for Trump? Abortion. She didn't like abortion. Okay, don't have an abortion then. Fine. No one's going to make you have an abortion if you don't want one. That doesn't happen. But to stop other women having freedom or autonomy over their own bodies, this woman has condemned her own disabled daughter to death. To death. And she won't even dial it back. She goes, oh, well, it's not what I wanted, but oh, well, hey. I still wouldn't vote for Kamala. And when I talk about people being prepared to sacrifice their firstborn for their dick-headed beliefs, this is it. This is it in a nutshell. Her own daughter will have to go without medication and she will die. And that's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And yet she's sitting there going, oh, but I'm glad I voted. It's not what I wanted, but I still wouldn't vote for that awful Kamala woman. She wanted everyone to have an abortion, which is disgraceful. Oh, it's 10 o'clock already. Shit, I haven't done the papers. Quick to the papers, quick. Okay. Sorry everyone, chundering on, having a chat with you. It's nice to have a chat in the morning. We've got the Mirror. Kate Stoughton about. So some woman has a drink. She's on the front cover again of all the newspapers again because she had a drink. She had a Guinness. Some woman had a Guinness. Some woman had a half a Guinness, or she's a giant. Welfare reform now. Don't punish the needy. Unions warn PM over plans to slash billions of benefits, but Labour insists cuts are needed and will be done fairly. How Jack Draper smashed it. Okay. My fat drugs left me with Ozempic face. I don't even know what that means. Net zero fantasy could bankrupt Britain, warns Badenoch. She's talking about the fact that we're not going to get to net zero by 2050, which we will if Labour stay in charge, but if the Tories get back in or refuck, all bets are off. Checks on sick benefit claimants to increase. but the most severely disabled may be exempt. And that is not a helpful cover, is it, of a news story? May be exempt. Might be, might not be. Who knows? To me, that's a disgraceful headline. It's a disgraceful abdication of the duty by Labour by allowing that line. But the most severely disabled may be exempt. No, will be exempt. That is the word that you want there. But Labour comms. Woman drinking. Millions will have annual weigh-in to fight obesity. We've got, is it time for Ellie Hunt to give up on blonde hair? I don't know who Ellie Hunt is. Or is it L Hunt? Let's hunt for the L's. Let's hunt for the L's, guys. Alan Jones art, controversy, and covering Kate Moss in fiberglass. Okay. D-Day for benefit cuts as Starmer faces growing tides of opposition. London to Lviv, how Trump's new world order has shaken Europe. 1,000-mile train journey shows continent is reeling from US president's shift in attitude towards Ukraine. War. Kemi, net zero by 2050 impossible. Tory leader to break cross-party consensus on climate change to warn current targets will make us poorer. No, they won't. They'll make us way richer because we'll be in control of our own energy. Okay? Energy, water, really, really important things. We should own them. The water that lands on our country, we should own it. It shouldn't be owned by some fucking shareholders in Canada. All right? I'm going to go with people in Canada. But, like, that water should be ours. The fact that that water is now privatized is just abominable. Absolutely abominable. Daily Mail here just being ridiculous. When weight loss is not good for your health, God, they're all fucking... Like, I'm sorry, but there's a healthy weight for everyone that's, like, healthy. If it's unhealthy, fine, get help. But the obsession, the absolute obsession that everyone has to be a skinny fucking minx, it's absolutely infuriating. To be attractive, you've got to be dead skinny. That's not the case. That is really, really not the case by any stretch of the imagination. Why many women are told they're depressed are actually autistic. Stop going grey and ward off dementia with celery. Fuck me. I hate the Daily Mail so much. Last Battle of Britain pilot has died. Old John Paddy Hemingway. He said he had the look of the Irish, which kept him going through D-Day. Going through the Battle of Britain, sorry, and he's the last one to die at the age of 105. Another woman, it's the same woman drinking a tiny Guinness. Oh, she's a giant woman drinking a normal pint of Guinness. Badenoch, net zero by 2050. We've done that one. Starmer refused to back down on 6 billion benefits cut. Does he? Does he not? I don't know. Secrets of writing a CV at 62. Oh, fuck off. So Ukrainians flee Kursk ahead of Putin. Talks to agree ceasefire deal. It's wave goodbye to passport queues here in the news, if you say so, mate. We've got the Daily Star saying very, very grumpy. Disney protesters, CGI replaces dwarves in new Snow White flick. Oh God, they look horrific. They look absolutely horrific. Oh God. Okay. Uncanny Valley. Financial Times has a man walking into a mirror. Don't walk into the mirror, Merch. You'll die. He's going into the mirror dimension where everything is the other way around. O'Day to be banned from city roles and fined 1.8 million. Oh, cool. Crispin O'Day, this is FCA decision cites lack of integrity. Fund founder appeals against ruling. Oh, mate, I wish he'd been fined 1.8 billion, but banned from city roles. This is the guy who made a load of money out of Brexit because he's a gobshite. Felicity Kendall, I hope Beeb can get its good life mojo back. I'm with Vivian at the young ones when it comes to the good life. And then we've got Rachel Reeves warned next month's national insurance hike will damage Britain's economy. 20 billion tax raid disaster is killing growth. Well, we wouldn't need to have any kind of tax raid for 40 billion if we were still part of the EU. We're losing 40 billion pounds a year in taxation, in money going to the coffers of the Chancellor of the Exchequer, taxpayers' money that could be there, that isn't there, this gaping black hole that is not there anymore because of Brexit, because of the Brexit that the Tories and the Daily Express wanted. And there's a woman holding a tiny pint of Guinness again, a half pint of Guinness, I guess. She's on the front cover there. And then there's a woman, I don't know who she is, she's holding a tiny pint of Guinness again. I don't know why she has to be on the front cover of every single fucking newspaper, but this is the world we live in. 17 billion needed just to fix the road. Roads. Shock reports as highways are failing and demands longer-term spending plans to end the deadly hazard. disability benefit cuts. Reeves still scrambling to win over cabinet, and that's the end of the papers for today. So we don't know yet. When they give an announcement, I might do a live show. I don't know what time they're doing the announcement, but I might do a live show, a talk along while that's happening. So look out for that today. Otherwise, I'll be back this evening at 7:30 for Geoscope. Big shout out to everyone in the chat. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for everyone watching who was lurking. Next time, maybe join the chat. If you would like to get a little rose after your name, see Martin Harrow there, Nick and Diff. They've got a lovely little rose after their name. To do that, to get that, all you need to do is press the join button if it's available to you and join the channel for a couple of quid a month, and you will get a little rose after your name, which is kind of cool. And it's also automatic. You also get your name at the end of the show when I get round to updating the credits, which I used to have to do once a month. Now I have to do it like once a week, but I will get around to that momentarily. Ishtar says the rich have to get ahead of the water wars. Water is becoming a valuable commodity. Can't let people just have it for free. Actually, though, pretty good at desalination, so there's hope. Fingers crossed. Tiny Graham is my favourite. Graham says, Unquiet Badger. You trying to keep me small? Do you even know me? Thanks anyway for watching. Give us a like on the way out. We always like a like on this channel. And like I say, I'll try and do something today when this benefits deal is announced, so we can watch it together and you can leave comments in real time. Other than that, I don't know what time it's going to be. I'll have to find out. I'll let you know. But other than that, I'll definitely be back for 7:30 for Geoscope tonight. And until then, I'll say thank you so much for watching. And until next time, hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.